Okay, hi, Jerry. My name's John Suzanne. I'm a member of the Olympia Indivisible Endorsements Research Team, and we're excited to be able to talk to you about your candidacy for the Port of Olympia County Port Commissioner. So, why don't you start us off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your family? I'd like to hear a little bit about that. And
Sure.
yeah, and so take about maybe 5 minutes, and why you decided to run, how you got roped into running for port.
Yes. So yeah, my name is Jerry Toompas, and I'm running for Port Commissioner District 2. And I just want to thank you guys for being here and for inviting me. Your organization is really the what every organization should be in the progressive sphere. So I'm always impressed by you guys. Um, but about me, so I am a lifelong resident of Thurston County. I live out in Yelm. I was born and raised here. I love the area. I moved away for college. I came right back um, because it's a good place to raise my family. So for me, I have 8 kids, so it's a little bit, just a tiny bit more than most people, but it's what we always wanted. It's what we love. So it's a large part of my life is my family. So I first started getting into politics, when I was 18. I did a whole bunch of political stuff in my college years. In my 20s. I just recently got back about 5 years ago. I've been doing a lot of volunteering in a lot of different ways, but ultimately it's because of my family. I ran for city council of Yelm a couple years ago, and it was to represent really interest for families in the area that aren't being represented, and that's sort of why I'm running for Port of Olympia or Port Commissioner is because I really just want to be a voice for everybody, for people who um, don't have as much, people who need activities, people who need clean water, clean air, just families I want to represent, specifically families. And that includes every single person in Thurston County. We're all taxed for the port. I think a lot of us, especially in the rural areas, don't feel like we have much voice or much benefit. So I think that my campaign and me as commissioner, I'm going to just be doing a lot of listening. I can see multiple people in this room that have far more experience and knowledge on the Port of Olympia. I think that's awesome. So one thing that I bring to the table is I'm great at listening. I'm very analytical, so I can handle those very large documents and all the tax implications and environmental studies, so I can understand those. I have a business background, but ultimately I'm a teacher, and that's what I love. That's what I'm doing. And I think it'd be really cool to have someone who's not a developer or CEO or someone who's like heavily invested in business to represent the people. So
Yes.
that's sort of who I am, and I'm just going to go all over the place today. So that's fine.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about your teaching career. What do you, how is your teaching career? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so yeah, so I was in business for 10, 15 years. I did insurance, I did sales, I was in call centers. I just had a lot of different like changes in career where I just didn't really love it. I worked at Comcast as a sales manager, having people in a call center, sell Comcast services, and it just really was not what I wanted to do. So I already had an MBA, I already had a business degree, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do something brand new. So I was fortunate in that I was able to go to school while being a full-time employee and while parenting a large number of kids. And I wanted to do special education because I have my own special needs growing up, which I've mostly overcome, which is a lot of social anxiety. So this is kind of a fun story for me running for office. But my children have special needs, and I worked with adults who had developmental disabilities, and I just really connect with them. So I mean, from day one, I've loved my new job. So no regrets. I'm going to be doing teaching till the day I die. So um, yeah, that's sort of goes into it. I was teaching in Yelm, in the Yelm community schools, but then I left during the levy failure and
Hmm.
work at Bethel now. So, which is great. I love it even more. So,
All right. Well, let's get into a little bit about the more substantive stuff about the port here. You stated the goal of including more Thurston County residents in the port's decision making. You said too many people have been left off decisions and benefits. How would you address this issue?
well, the first thing is nobody is told to care at all. People, I'm pretty sure only one out of every 100 people in my city of Yelm would actually understand what the port does. Um, Also, unless you tell them the benefits and the risks associated with the public owning a port, they don't really understand. We need a lot more outreach as far as people who are away from the port. I think that the Nisqually Valley News out here, just as an example, probably does maybe a port story once a year, whereas the Olympia will have probably 20, 30. So it's definitely not even since we're all like have the same voice. But I think ultimately that would involve a lot of outreach as far as media. Um, as a commissioner, you have a platform and you can use that to inform people all over the county, and that's something that would be really fun for me. As far as actually the power of each individual person, well, I would like to go to port commissioner meetings myself. Today there's one, but it's a drive. It's a drive for a lot of people. So I
Yeah.
just jumped onto the meeting on YouTube Live, which is great that they have that. Um, but I think more than just the citizens understanding about the port, I think if they knew they had a voice in what developers are signing 75-year leases, or what is the pollution over in Olympia. We don't think too much about that out here. But I do. I grew up going to Percival Lab Landing. I grew up walking on the docks and loving it, and that's still my what I think of when I think of Olympia is the smell, the atmosphere, and I just want to keep that going. Kind of got off topic there, but
So in your questionnaire response, you agreed with the statement by Commissioner Vasavada that the port is not well positioned to compete in global shipping. What kinds of activities did you have in mind that could, in your words, prioritize our local communities and environments?
well, I think instead of focusing just on developing, it's a very unique situation when the public owns land and we can control it and we can decide what to do with it. And I think that's great. I think we need to protect that. So, I mean, as far as the water, I would say just a lot of recreational services. We could have different people out there renting canoes, renting all kinds of fun stuff out there. We could have more parks, more walkways, trails. So the important thing to know is that it's owned by us, and if anything's going to happen on it, it has to benefit us, and that doesn't just factor into millions of dollars in lease payments or anything. I mean, if we wanted the tax revenue, we might as well just give it to private developers. But no, it's ours. We own it, and we have this really cool opportunity to do something great with it. And yeah, I think again, I'm all about families, and I dislike whenever there's a time I want to leave the house with my kids and we don't have anywhere to go that's free. And I think that's an important part of a community is having beautiful places that people can go to. So I guess just recreation. I'm not saying we should do away with all business. Of course, that doesn't work either. There's bills to pay. There's, economic benefits and employment and again, local taxes. There is a balance there, but I just really want to hit it from a very citizen focused, everyday person of Thurston County. Um, I just want to be their voice.
Okay. Well, I'm curious as to can you explain your views on the continuation of the Weyerhaeuser logging chipping operations after their lease expires in 2032? Do you uh, think that they should be offered an extension to continue to ship logs, or some of us think it's maybe time to end the log shipping? What's your opinion about
Yeah, I would say we have to, instead of just putting my voice in and committing something now. I mean, I'll tell you, I probably would vote against it. Um, but again, I would have to have all the information. But I think ultimately it was a bad decision on our part. They had, I think I read somewhere that they had $500 per kilometer or something in leases, like insanely below market value right now. So obviously we wouldn't extend anything unless they pay a lot more, unless they have a lot more benefit. But ultimately, I don't love the idea. I would love to see, this amazing location do something better. So I think ultimately, weighing the business interest, are they going to be the best for our area, the most, for instance, most employment? Maybe, I don't know, but that's not really what I envision.
that? Okay. Well, there are current efforts led by the port staff for a waterfront center near Swantown on the Port Peninsula, part of that destination waterfront idea. And they're proposing like a three-story anchor structure, and that's what they envision. And in commenting about the master plan for the future of the Port Peninsula, you stated your vision as remediating contaminated lands, converting underutilized space into public parks, and ensuring that new development is green, climate resilient, and community owned where possible. Do you still hold this position, and does this proposal for the three-story structure align with your view?
So I'm not 100% sure on a three-story structure, so I can't speak too much for that, except that um, so the Port Peninsula project is that specifically like a
Well,
piece of that, or
yeah, that was part of the waterfront, the destination waterfront, and there is something that is in kind of they're trying to find some developers to do this.
so if it's the same thing
But
that I think it is, I think they had a planning session a week and a half ago or so. Is that
yeah,
right? Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll tell you that was a little bit eye-opening to seeing that conversation, because you do have, I believe, one side was, hey, we should just give it to developers. They have, you know, they know what to do with it. It's more likely to be developed. Um, then we had one side that was more, I'm not sure what we should do. And then the other side, well, maybe we can do something in between. I guess that's eye-opening for me because it was just not so nonchalant. Like, okay, let's just give it to a business for 75 years. Like, no, this is a huge deal. Like,
Yeah.
and I understand there's been a lot of discussions about it previously. It's just seemed like decisions were happening in that moment. And it was a little bit surprising to see, but I'm not against the building per se. I would hope that um, it's going to be having recreational facilities, some things for families, like I was saying. I think they said something like a high-end restaurant, and then they wanted a low-end restaurant. I don't. Maybe that's better than nothing, but yeah, as long as it's super accessible, as long as it has a purpose, that's in the public's good. I'm for that. If it's like that, the one commissioner, I was just like, I think we should just give it to the business interests. No. At that point, we might as well just do away with the Port of Olympia altogether and just give it to, sell it off. So I don't think that's not my envision. That's not what I envision for the port at all. I'd like to see it as a force of good and I don't see that as being a force of good.
Okay. Well, let's move away from the Port Peninsula now and talk about the other major asset, the airport. What is your position regarding the airport master plan update?
Well, and this is something I've spent a lot of time in the last 3 weeks looking into. And I've been holding meetings. I've gotten perspectives from both sides. I asked the current commissioners. So at this point, I am against it. Um, I believe that while there are not economic, environmental studies, that we should never like push through anything without going over the top. So I know there's a lot of concerns with piecemealing. Sure, there's been environmental studies that show it doesn't have a specific detriment to the citizens, but overall, it very well might be. So I know there's currently a lawsuit. I think I just heard that it's coming to at least a new stage, which is good. But yeah, I would say as far as the expansion, I don't want to see anything move forward until there's a lot more information. I know that it's a balancing act. I would like to know, some of the commissioners mentioned that the port would lose a lot of money if we stopped it in its track right now. Uh, we'd lose potentially federal grants. So, I'm uh, pretty, I guess, rational, even keeled when it comes to decisions like this. But ultimately, you have to just stick by the principle that if it's going to kill species, if it's going to um, pollute the aquifer, if it's going to bother citizens from having tons of noise and smoke and all kinds of pollutants. Yeah, it's got to be a last resort. This is this is our area. This is our home. And what do we do with public land? We use it for public good. We don't need to use it to pollute our citizens. So it would have to go through a lot more environmental studies, and I think probably realistically there would be room for some consensus as far as expanding in some ways and not other ways. But yeah, I don't mind being the voice against it because it sounds like the current commissioners are for it. So, but I don't mind standing alone. I don't mind using my platform uh, to convince, to debate, to try to change minds, and that's what I would do.
Okay, well, here's a kind of a speculative question, but if you had been on the commission this past year, and would you have voted in favor or against the Panettone South Sound Center project at the Newmarket Industrial Center, an almost 500,000 square foot warehouse?
So I didn't know anything about this during the time because just like most citizens, I didn't know what the Port of Olympia did. I don't know what the benefit is to me or if I even had a say. But since then, yes, I've heard a lot about it, and no, I would not have voted for that. So it's just a large warehouse. It's just like I said, I believe it's a 75-year lease.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you can't, maybe I'm naive, but 75 years is too long. Like you can't, you can't give away a piece of land for that long. It doesn't matter how much money you're making on it because you don't know what's going to happen in 30 years or 10 years for that matter. Um, but yeah, I can see how it was pushed through. It didn't have, I think, is it SEPA review? So yeah, I know you guys know all this way better than I do, but I think ultimately, like, yeah, I would definitely have been much more vocal than a few of the commissioners were, in making sure that every I was dotted, every T crossed, making sure everything is good for the people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, there were a lot of issues regard to the environmental impacts and the effects on the Salmon Creek community that's right around there and the middle school. So, yeah, there was a lot of public opposition.
Yeah.
But as you said, of course, not too many people pay attention to these things that are going on at the port, and that's where I agree with you that more public uh, outreach is really something that's required.
Mhm.
Um, so, um, okay, so let's another development out there in the airport area was the Swire Coca-Cola bottling plant, and it's got a 90-acre lease, and it's also another like a 75-year commitment. Um, most people, like I said, most people in the county don't know much about how this impacts their lives. How would you educate and engage the larger Thurston County public about the port? And what's your opinion of that Swire contract?
Well, the Swire contract is again like the other one. It's is what public good is it giving to the citizens? What again, there's all of the environmental it just is pushed through. I think the commissioners, for one, take take data from the port commissioners or the port workers and leadership without really going over anything and questioning it as much as they should. I think you mentioned something about outreach. I think all the time, like, why don't more commissioners submit op-eds or anything? We get op-eds in our newspaper all the time. I don't see anything about the poor ever. So I think just being a voice, using that your platform to inform others is really a major part of the job because that's what you're doing is you're representing citizens. You're not representing these developers. We're not just looking after dollars and cents. But I think the Swire lease, again, I need to do more research on it. But and I wish I was paying attention back then so I could be a better voice. I'm not going to go back into the dark though. I'm going to continue to look into port issues from now on. But yeah, the Swire lease, I've only heard bad things. So I imagine that at the time I'm someone who's listens to people around me. Before I make a decision, I'm not going to just talk to the developers or go to the meetings. I'm going to talk to my constituents and really understand the issue. So, I imagine that if I was there this last year, I would vote against it.
Well, your opponent voted for it
Yeah.
when he was on. So anyway, that kind of wraps up what I had to ask you. Could you spend a couple minutes just telling us, anything else that you would like to us to know, and tell us a little bit about your campaign, your website, and how you're doing in that regard.
Hey,
Sure.
Jerry, I'm so sorry. Before you get started, I just want to time check. We've got 3.5 meetings before Zoom is going to kick us off. So I just wanted to make
Okay.
everyone aware.
Make it quick.
Yeah, please go ahead.
That's all right. I got 3 minutes is probably good if that's okay with you. Yeah, my campaign. So I didn't imagine I was going to run for port commissioner. That's why I'm kind of jumping in a little bit more unprepared than I would love. But hey, I got 5 months, right? I think the main thing you need to be a port commissioner is obviously the ability to listen, but then just to make common sense decisions. So I don't think I have to jump in knowing everything about the port. Um, I think it's as long as I stand by my principles and look out for the good of citizens, then that's all I need. So I figured, I'm going to jump in. I did hear that my opponent was maybe running a little bit less progressive than what people had assumed when they had elected him. So I think that it was a good place for me to jump in because I've always loved public service. I've always dreaming of representing constituents and in any role. So it's not really just about me, but that's always been my history because I think maybe I have like a nurturing personality. I just want to do good. I want to want to do good in the world. So
Don't forget to mention your website address.
yeah, so my website is my name, so jerrytoompas.com. I did update it today, so there's gonna be a lot of material on there you guys can look at. But it's a good place to donate. I'm gonna accept endorsements, and yeah, at this part of my campaign, I'm still researching. I'm looking through the last year of board meetings, and I am reaching out for endorsements. So it looks like I'm going to be doing pretty well on those. So I'm excited. Um, as far as my campaign plan, I'm going to have to operate on a little bit of a tighter budget than most likely my opponent, which is fine. I have a marketing brain. I'm good at outreach, and I'm going to do a great job. So I can run a very successful quality campaign with less money, and that's what I'm planning on doing. Um, I'm I'm just excited to start going everywhere this summer. So one fun thing about being a teacher is that I can spend all summer knocking on doors. I can go to every event. I'm excited about that. I'm going to be working in the burger booth for the Thurston County Democrats, which is super fun. I did that last year. So yeah, I'm just going to enjoy being out and talking to everybody. And I mean, people like you who have reached out to me with concerns. I think it's really awesome to be in that position where people are already trusting you with their time and their expertise. And so yeah, I'm excited. I appreciate you guys. And I don't know, we probably have what, 30 seconds?
It just
Well,
says less than a minute, so any second now.
all right. Well, thanks so much. We better end it here.
All right.
So
Yeah, I appreciate
thanks,
it, guys.
Jerry. We appreciate your spending the time with us.
All right, thank you.